The Binding Blade banner is finally here. After a long wait since its initial announcement late last year, this is the final banner that we know of for sure. With Lieutenant Roy paving the way, the Beyond Darkness banner features Lugh, Sue, Thea, and Idunn. If you've never played Binding Blade like me, then you may be thinking, hey, some of these characters look familiar. Turns out there's a good reason for that. Lugh is the twin brother of Ray, and the two of them are Nino's children. As for Thea, she's an older sister of Shauna and the middle sibling in their family. In the rest of this video, I'll be covering each of our characters' stats, new weapons and skills, and then talk about their potential playstyles, coupled with some build ideas. Let's get started. Lugh is a green infantry mage just like his mother, but that's not all he's inherited. His stats include 37 HP, 35 attack, 36 speed, 17 defense, and 31 resistance. With a similar spread to NINO, Lugh has more attack, HP, and resistance while sacrificing a little bit of defense. If NINO can still be a fantastic unit after more than 2 years, I think Lugh will do just fine. 35 attack and 36 speed is very nice in terms of any unit, and this will make sure Lugh can dish out some good damage in any of his builds. I do want to focus a bit on Lugh's 37 HP and 31 resistance though. Both aren't insanely high, but it gives him some decent magical bulk, and his base kit will want to work with that. In Lugh's base kit, he has two older skills. Mirror Stance grants him +4 attack and resistance when he's defending and is a good skill for fighting off other mages. As for Attack Feint, this applies a -7 attack debuff in cardinal directions from Lugh when he or an ally applies a rally assist skill. These two skills help Lugh reduce the amount of damage he takes, especially from mages, and that's not all just yet. Grand Serpent Plus is a 12 might tome that grants the user +6 defense and resistance when the enemy initiates combat, and they use a bold dagger tome or staff weapon. This is a very familiar effect in that these Serpent tomes basically grant distant defense 3. It's a purely enemy phase weapon and works well in tandem with Lugh's Mirror Stance and Attack Feint, assuming he hits the attacker with the debuff. Just including the Serpent Tome effect, Lugh will end up with 23 defense and 37 resistance when defending, which ain't half bad. While not the most popular brand of inheritable tomes, I'm happy to see another Serpent Tome. The last one we got, I kid you not, was almost exactly 1 year ago with Female Morgan bringing the blue Serpent Tome to the game. I guess that means we'll be getting the red one in March of 2020. Lugh's second new skill is Rally Up Resistance Plus. This skill grants +6 resistance to the ally target and any other allies within 2 spaces, excluding the user of course. The Rally Up skills are straight upgrades over the normal version, so there's really no downside using them over the regular rally skills. They are great for buffing the whole team versus just one ally, and they actually work well with the Feint B skills. This is because you may want to apply the Feint debuff in one column, but you need to rally an ally in another column. With Rally Up Resistance Plus, you have more options to where you want to apply the debuff and still give your allies extra stats. In terms of builds, I think Lugh has a base kit worth using for the most part. He has a lot of hidden tankiness with Grand Serpent and Mirror Stance both offering in combat buffs. With these Serpent Tomes, it's only natural to tack on another distant defense seal for an effective +12 defense and resistance against ranged units. If you're worried about Lugh's low base defense, you can refine Grand Serpent for it +3 defense for a little extra protection. With everything active, Lugh actually reaches 32 defense and a nice 47 resistance. This gets even better if you can manage to land Attack Feint, in which case Lugh would take even less damage. You can use anything in the C slot, but Res Ploy is a nice all-around skill to boost Lugh's damage in some scenarios. Altogether, this type of build is largely centered on enemy phase power. While Lugh has great base attack and speed to make it work, it goes a little wasted here. If you want to keep the same defensive playstyle, you can mix in some player phase power without sacrificing too much. I think giving Lugh some extra speed is worth it since it adds to both his defensive and offensive capabilities. Refine Grand Serpent for 2 extra speed and change out Res Ploy for Speed Ploy to get more doubles in fights. We'll also exchange Mirror Stance for attacking Res Bond. If you wait on the enemy phase, it should be easy to set Lugh up next to a teammate, and technically this skill grants +1 attack and +1 res over Mirror Stance. It can also be used on the player phase, and while not a guaranteed activation, it's at least possible. Personally, I think Lugh has a cool kit thanks to Attack Feint and Grand Serpent. I know a lot of people probably won't stick with this more defensive playstyle, but it's nice to see and I think it offers some nice utility and support for the team. If you're looking to take advantage of Lugh's great attack and speed, then you really can't go wrong with the classic Blade Tome builds. Grand Blade with Fury and Desperation sets Lugh up to deal tons of damage, and if NINO made it work, there's zero reason Lugh can't do the same. While Blade Tomes are good fun, I still think NINO's new Iris's Tome makes her a better user than Lugh, mainly because it gets rid of the cooldown penalty, which Lugh will still have to deal with. It's not a major advantage, but it does open up more interesting build and special options. For Lugh, whether you stick with his more defensive Grand Serpent or trade it out for something else, I think he's a fine addition to the Green Mage pool. Next up we have Sue, who is a Greenbow Cavalier. She's here to carry on the scary threat of Sikaean horseback archers. Sue has 36 HP, 32 attack, 38 speed, 23 defense, and 20 resistance. With 38 base speed, Sue is now our second fastest archer in the whole game, and 32 attack is quite decent as well. Her offensive capabilities come at the cost of below average defenses, and with not super high HP either, Sue is going to take a good amount of damage if she does get hit. Luckily, with 3 movement, she'll have a lot of freedom to dart around the battlefield. Before we discuss Sue's new toys, she brings along some strong favorites. Moonbow is universally good on pretty much anybody, and while it may not be the best special of all the time, it's always great when tackling tougher enemies. With Swift Sparrow, Sue is looking at 36 attack and 42 speed, which means she'll be quite the offensive threat. As with Brave Lyn, you're gonna have to watch who you let tank Sue's attacks. This is even more true since she also comes with Chill Defense. A -7 debuff to your tank can make a big difference, and if Sue follows up, that's a lot of extra damage. Overall, a nice set of offensive skills to match your offensive stat line. Sue introduces a new inheritable bow called the Short Bow Plus. The Short Bow has 12 might, is effective against flyers, and deals plus 10 damage when special triggers. Basically, this is the bow version of the Woldao weapons. Besides being ranged, it will work very similar to those. You want units who can spam their specials, and that means either having cooldown reduction skills or being fast enough to double often. Low cooldown specials like Moonbow are also good pairings, and Sue is plenty fast to get natural follow-ups. Unfortunately, as a cavalry archer, she doesn't have a lot of cooldown reduction options. For example, she can't use Special Spiral, Breath A skills, Flashing Blade, or even Wrath. While the short bow is a nice weapon, I don't know if it will be able to compete with the ever popular Brave Bow or Fire Sweep bows. Both weapons protect the user from getting hit, and Sue doesn't have Sakae's Blessing like Brave Lyn. While she will be able to dish out good damage on foes who can't hit back, Sue's biggest weakness will be surviving counterattacks. As for Sue's second skill, she has Hone and Speed 4. We already had Hone Attack 4, and this new power creep skill functions in the same way. Instead of +4 speed, it now grants +7 speed to any adjacent allies at the start of the turn, and that is quite powerful. It's a massive speed boost and will be very useful for any team. I love the regular Hone skills because they are super simple to use and work on just about any teammates you choose. If you do plan to use Sue in Horse Emblem, however, I probably would just stick with Hone Cavalry, since exchanging 1 speed for 6 attack seems much more worthwhile to me. In terms of builds, Sue doesn't have to change much of anything to be effective. She wants to be on the offensive because her defense and resistance are both not amazingly high, although she will fare much better against blue units. I would refine the short bow for extra speed, but more defense and resistance is fair game too. For seals, Sue can use another buffing skill to complement her powerful Hone Speed 4. If she can activate her special, the short bow's extra damage will be nice, but getting to that point will be the main difficulty. If you want, you can try to run Sue with Desperation for safer engagements, but getting to its HP threshold without using Fury may be tough. If you can make it there, however, Sue can use Heavy Blade to proc Moonbow on the second hit of Desperation. While 32 attack isn't awful, Sue will still need heavy attack boosting support to proc it against tougher enemies. An attack boon is going to be the most helpful, and you'll want buffs like Hone Cavalry helping Sue out. If you aren't feeling the short bow, then there's always the Brave Bow or Fire Sweep Bow. These two weapons have largely taken over all other bows because they just provide safer ways for archers to tackle certain enemies. The Brave Bow has tons of power and allows archers to KO enemies before they get to retaliate. The Fire Sweep Bow, on the other hand, just straight up denies the enemy from fighting back, and Sue has the high speed needed to make follow-ups too. While Sue is a decent alternative to Brave Lyn, her college status will probably see her less used. She'll obviously do well against blue threats and be weak to red enemies, but Brave Lyn can terrorize everyone equally. I don't think she is bad, but I also don't think you'll see her that much. Our third unit is Thea, who is a Lance Flyer. She sports 37 HP, 31 attack, 35 speed, 31 defense, and 28 resistance. The Lance Flyer group is heavily populated, and Thea fits in an odd category. She's very similar to Catria with good speed, okayish attack, and balanced defenses, but Catria has her incredibly powerful White Wing Lance now. Her defensive stats are okay, not super high, but a good even spread, and we'll talk about what she can do with that. For old skills, Thea has Ignis, which is quite odd to see on Pegasus Knights, but it does have a place. With Steady Posture as her A skill, Thea will get an extra +4 speed and defense during the enemy phase, so that does help improve her tanking ability. Speaking of tanks, Thea's weapon is the Vanguard Plus. It's an inheritable lance with 14 might and grants +7 defense when the enemy initiates combat. This would be the defense version of Berkut's Lance, which we've had for a long while, and it's meant for enemy phase tanks to soak up physical damage. Keep in mind, Vanguard Plus can be refined fine for even more defense, or you can grab some resistance to balance out a build. Thea has 31 base defense, which isn't that high, but with Vanguard Plus and Steady Posture, Thea will get an extra 11 defense to help her ward off attackers. I'm sure we'll be seeing this lance passed on to bulkier lance units like Lugh, who can just become an even more ridiculous physical tank now. Thea's second new skill is Seal Speed and Defense 2. After combat, inflict -5 speed and defense on the enemy through its next action. So the seal skills are largely regarded as kind of useless, and that's been the case since pretty much launch release. While the debuff is quite good, the issue with these skills is that they imply the enemy is going to survive the battle. And no one really wants that. We'd rather have them dead in one round of combat because a lot of problems arise when you leave enemies alive. That's not fully true in every game mode, but for Arena it's a big problem, and as such, seal type skills are pretty much ignored. If I'm being completely honest, you're probably going to want to replace this skill with anything else you have. So for builds, things are really simple for Thea. With Vanguard Plus, she's looking to play an enemy phase style tank, and we can stack on a third enemy phase skill with the Close Defense Sacred Seal. If you don't like Ignis, swap it out for Bonfire. If you don't care about Steady Posture, use a Bond type skill instead, like Attack and Defense Bond or Speed and Defense Bond. For B skills, I would replace Sealed Speed and Defense with things like Guard, Quick Riposte, Dull Close, Chill skills, or even Breaker skills. While Thea can be a cool defensive flyer, I think that role gets hurt by not having access to Breath type A skills. She doesn't have a way to spam specials often, and I think it's just an unfortunate downside to running a tanky flyer. They are also weak to arrows, and while you are stacking defense, having that innate weakness is just a bummer. If pure defense isn't your style, then Thea can maybe find success with a riskier, more offensive build. Thea should be able to take a hit thanks to Vanguard, and with her lowish HP, she should get knocked into Brazen range fairly often. With double Brazen skills like Brazen Attack and Speed plus Brazen Attack and Defense, Thea very quickly gains some much needed power. Desperation offers player phase sweeping power, and despite falling on low HP, she still has Vanguard, Brazen Defense, and Attack Smoke to boost her enemy phase tanking potential. Hopefully it's enough for her to take a little to no damage and survive. I think Thea will be an okay unit, but defensive flyers are just a bit awkward, and I think they just don't have access to enough tools like their infantry or armored counterparts. If you are serious about making Thea into a physical tank, then I would suggest trying to get her Steady Stance 4 from Surtur, as that's one of the best defensive skills flyers actually can use. Last but not least, we have Idunn, or Idunn, who is quite the monster, literally. She is a red armored dragon, and boy, she is something. Idunn has 45 HP, 35 attack, 26 speed, 39 defense, and 34 resistance. While she isn't topping these stat categories, she is solid all around. Idunn is rivaling Hollowing Mirror in the defensive department, and her skills only embrace the tank life. Just looking at her old skills, things are already scary. Bonfire makes perfect sense for her high base defense, Fortress Defense and Resistance 3 is back, and just for record keeping, this puts Idunn at 45 defense and 40 resistance, all for the price of -2 attack. She won't care about 2 attack points because she also has Vengeful Fighter, which gives her 2 attacks when defending and will charge Bonfire faster. To top things off, she also has Ward Dragon, so if you want to use her on a dragon team, that is a nice defensive boost. Idunn's one new skill is her unique weapon, and it's called Demonic Breath. It has 16 might and grants a flat +3 defense. If you include Fortress Defense and Res, that puts Idunn at a visible 48 defense, which is just gross. That's not all though, because Demonic Breath is also effective against armored units, and boy is that a good ability. For all of you in high tier arena, if you run an armored team, you will have to watch out for Idunn, as magical damage plus armor effectiveness is an amazing combo. And we aren't done yet. At the start of combat, if a negative status is on Idunn, or if Idunn is below 100% HP, she gets 2 benefits. 1, she neutralizes any penalties. I'm not 100% certain, but I think this includes debuffs as well as status effects like Panic, which is really good. The second effect is that Idunn gets +4 to all stats during combat. This is a very stacked weapon, and with debuffs or statuses like Panic being somewhat common, she'll get to completely ignore them, and she gets a stat buff on top. As many people have noticed, Idunn looks like a hilarious counter to Surtur. She's a red unit, deals magical damage that gets the effective against multiplier, and her weapon counters Surtur's menace. While she will still get hit by Sinmara, I don't think Surtur will do any meaningful damage on his regular attacks. He probably won't even get to attack if Idunn initiates first anyway. If you aren't running mages and need a strong red counter to Surtur or green armors in general, Idunn will be a top tier choice. For builds, Idunn is pretty much usable out of the box, and she has an incredible enemy phase based kit. Tons of natural bulk and fortress defense and res plus vengeful fighter makes her tough to attack into. Not to mention Idunn will be immune to debuffing effects and potentially panic as well. If you want a crazy melee unit, give her close defense and she'll be laughing at any oncoming attackers. If she does manage to take damage, then demonic breath will always be active, and that means Idunn gets plus for all stats after that. Now, the major weakness for Idunn's base kit will be ranged attackers and a not as scary player phase. Unlike Surtur, whose player phase is still dangerous because of his crazy 20 damage axe and debuffing effects, Idunn doesn't have anything too crazy other than reaching a decent 30 speed if demonic breath is active. If you aren't running a blue mage, getting her to attack first is your best bet. That is, unless she has bold fighter, in which case you probably don't want to let that happen. 2 attacks from a unit with 50 plus magical damage and a bonfire proc that is doing more than 20 damage by itself is plenty powerful. If you go the bold fighter route, then Idunn's enemy phase will be weaker unless you use quick repose. She can pair that with distant counter to keep a scary defense, and now she'll be able to counterattack range units too. If Idunn can get in close and make her bold fighter initiation first, then she can also apply attack smoke to the rest of the enemy team. -7 attack on the enemy and potentially a +4 stat boost thanks to demonic breath will make Idunn quite tanky, and if she survives the enemy's turn, then she can then bold fighter another target. If you aren't worried about ranged threats, then replacing this encounter with something like Steady Breath or Steady Stance 4 will be great choices. To me, dealing with Idunn is going to be similar to dealing with Halloween Myrrh. Both can stack tons of defense and res, and both are scary on both phases, depending on which fighter skill they have. If you can deal with Myrrh, you can probably deal with Idunn, but that's way easier said than done. She is by far the best unit on this banner, and she'll definitely be seen in arena or Aether raids. In terms of armored dragons, Idunn is another amazing unit. That's it for this banner breakdown. Let me know what you think about our 4 new heroes and if you're planning on summoning for them. Reminder that there is another Forging Bonds event for this banner, so if you do summon, get those first summon tickets before so you save a little bit of orbs. We also have the next Grand Hero Battle unit coming in a couple days. It's going to be Rutger, and I'll have a video about him when he's released. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.